I'm joined now by a public affairs analyst and a socio-economic commentator who will help, break down or dissect the data having gotten or being gotten from the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I'm joined now by Faiz Aliyu. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me, Jim.
Thank you, as usual, for again for coming on Business Daily today. I did mention, of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria's report saying that diaspora remittances inflows had increased, in the month of July to $553 million, and this is an all-time high performance, which shows about 130% increase from the corresponding period in 2023. But let's just begin by you giving us an idea of what your thoughts are regarding this data. What do you make of this data, and what do you believe are the contributing factors to this rise?
So diaspora remittances are a major factor in Nigeria's economy. Specifically, they supplement both foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. When you look at the increase that we've currently been seeing, it's an indication that the CBN's measures and their policy measures specifically to shore up the nation's foreign exchange market are yielding some positive results. I also think it's very telling that over the past month or so, we have seen a slowdown in Nigeria's inflation, which means that the policy measures have finally started to bear at these particular measures that the CBN has put in place one by one. Specifically, you look at the effort to increase the number of licensed international money transfer operators. Having as many as possible makes it easier and gives various institutions options through which they can process their remittances. There's also been an effort to ensure that these organizations have access to liquidity in Naira. They've also done a very good job of opening up a willing seller, willing buyer model, which allows both the buyer and the seller to indicate the price that they would be both comfortable with, instead of going with the set price, making it much easier for remittances to flow into the country. There are two ways to look at this, really. First is that foreign remittances can supplement both foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment, which are both indicators of a strong economy. The other way to look at it is that an increase in remittances is an indicator of both a weakened economy that is starting to gain some sort of stability, and an inflationary pressure on the Naira that requires an increase in remittances in order to shore up some of the loss in the Naira's purchasing power.
Let us go on a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue. And my guest, who is Faiz Aliyu, is still on standby to stay. You're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. Just before the break, we started a conversation on the levels of diaspora remittances being brought into Nigeria, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, which showed, a significant increase in remittance inflows, peaking as high as $553 million in July of 2024. But I still have my guest with me here, who is a socio-economic analyst in the person of Faiz Aliyu. Thank you again for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
And just before the break, you started talking to some policies we have seen so far come from the Central Bank of Nigeria and how that has impacted on the levels of inflows. You talked to, granting of licenses, to new international money transfer operators, as well as some other policies that you have mentioned. And you also did say something which I found quite interesting, saying that this goes to show that there is some level of recovery right now regarding the Nigerian economy. When you say that, what are the signs that you see that makes you say that, of course, that there has been some sort of recovery so far?
I think I'd like to clarify. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's signs of recovery, but certainly signs of stability. In that, when you see that the foreign exchange market has a certain level of liquidity, it makes it much easier for investment to come into the country. In this particular instance, we're talking about diaspora remittances. It supplements foreign direct investment in many cases. Now, being able to have several operators that can very easily ensure the swift access to these funds increases the level of consumption and increases the level of spending within the economy. So that also has a overall effect on the inflation figures in the country. You will notice that within the past month, the inflationary pressures have shortened slightly to bring a certain level of stability after several months of volatility. And I think that's an indication that the monetary policies that the CBN has put in place, especially recent, have done the job of at least stabilizing the naira. And I think that's a first step towards recovery.
Well, thank you for that clarification, talking about recovery versus stability. But still looking at the economic implications, diaspora remittances have been a major source of foreign exchange for Nigeria. This has been, something that has gone on for the longest time. But I'd like for you to talk to how you foresee this surge impacting the Nigerian economy going forward, especially in the areas of foreign direct investment and, portfolio investment moving forward.
Well, you see, the truth is when you look at diaspora remittances, the vast majority of them are consumption driven. They are not necessarily going directly into areas of production, which are indicators for foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment. The percentage of these diaspora remittances that are going into stocks, part of FPI, is relatively low compared to those payments that are being made simply for remittance, simply for consumption reasons. The vast majority of these payments are from Nigerians and foreign economies who are able to send back money to friends Nigeria. Because the naira is at such a low point, that remittance is become high yield. And so that means that the cost of consumption, the price of selling comes down slightly, either for small businesses or for families. So the positive aspect of it is going to certainly make it easier for inflationary pressures on the naira, the economy in general, to come down slightly. As to whether it's going to have an effect on businesses, yes, small and medium enterprises certainly are going to have their business ends. But on a macroeconomic level, diaspora remittances, because they're consumption driven, do not necessarily cause an increase in FDI or FPI, although they do supplement it in some cases. So I do think we might see a slight increase, but it's more going to be about a decrease in inflationary pressure rather than an increase in business.
You said something that, I found very interesting, talking about, diaspora remittances being largely consumption driven. And looking at the timeline, I'm looking at, the month of July of 2024 and comparing it with the month of July of 2023 now. Would you say this time of the year has any impact on the amount? Now, looking at this period, which is usually called the summer holiday or the summer period now, would you say that this has any impact on these numbers having been recorded by the CBN?
Certainly, the summer holidays, especially from the developed world, are a period whereby many people who have been saving after the past 6 months or so are now in a position to be able to send those savings in large amounts to Nigeria. And so the reason that we're seeing a lot of money come in at this particular period, just like we saw it last year, is because of those summer holidays in particular. You spend from the December to around May, July, putting in as much savings as possible. And then at this particular time, it becomes easier to be able to send the money forward because you're going to get high yield owing to the volatility and the low pressure of the naira. And so it's easier for people to send it at this particular time versus later in the year when there are larger considerations to be made.
You also did touch on inflation, and last we checked, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, inflation has started to slow down, at least for the month of July, the first time in 19 months. What do you think that the CBN's effort, especially in tightening inflation, is sustainable beyond the period that we have seen so far? And what would you say were the contributing factors towards that? And what could be the long-term effects of this going forward?
Yes, I do think it is sustainable over the medium term, especially if the CBN are able to maintain the policies that they have put in place at their current rate. For example, what we have now is a buyer willing, seller willing model, which allows for both parties in a foreign exchange situation to agree on a set price. Because the naira is so volatile, you end up in a situation whereby on different days or in different weeks, you have different rates at which to take, especially dollar rate. If both parties can agree to a set amount, and one amount can be different, which party it is that is issuing the transaction, then you have a more stable avenue through which these remittances can enter the country. And that makes it much easier for the inflows to be consistent. It also means that there isn't too much price gouging going about because the rates that are being used are very, very much fixed. At least they're fixed in the sense that the buyers and the sellers have agreed to a price rather than allowing the market to dictate what that price would be. Additionally, the CBN has done a good job of increasing the number of international money transfer operators in the country, issuing these new licenses to as many IMTOs as possible. It means that there are several avenues through which consumers have options for their remittance needs. And that also allows for both increased inflow and consistent FX inflow. Also allowing these IMTOs to have access to liquidity in Nigeria's market means that they're able to access Naira directly and therefore pay in Naira directly, making it easier for the CBN to pay and easier for people to access these remittances almost immediately. And so all of these measures put in place and working in tandem have had a positive effect on inflationary pressures in the Naira, allowing for the flow down over the past month. I do think it is sustainable. However, it's important to look at macroeconomic factors affecting the economy. And as long as we can see this sort of consistency continue, then we might start seeing a turnaround in the naira's volatility.
But do you foresee the continued downward trajectory with inflation figures in the remaining months of the year for 2024?
No, I don't necessarily see downward trajectory. I see more of the possibility of stability. You see, once again, when you look at the figures, you're not necessarily seeing too much of a downturn. The decrease, I think, was not more than 2.3%, but that 2.3% is the first decrease we've been seeing in quite some time. And it also means that there is a certain measure of stability versus the volatility that we've been experiencing over the past couple of months. Now, that's important because stability gives investors confidence that the CBN has a handle on the situation. And that means that they are in a position, that is, the investors feel that they would be in a position to start investing in Nigeria again, owing to a certain level of stability. I think as far as a decrease goes, we might start seeing a decrease towards the end of the year, 2025. But right now, we should be looking more towards small decreases in the exchange rate rather than large outflows of the inflationary pressures.
Well said there, Mr. Faiz. But you had already, touched on investors' confidence currently, and investors' confidence as well as how in the FX markets currently. Even though I did, when going through the newspapers this morning, I did see a statement from the BDC operators talking to issues around so much going on and some discrepancies coming from the CBN, which has impacted the FX market negatively. But looking at the stability that is currently being witnessed now, how crucial is this confidence that we are seeing, especially in the FX market? How crucial is it now, especially, and what more can be done to strengthen it going forward?
Investor confidence probably is the single most important indicator we have now of the health of Nigeria's economy. We would really need a situation whereby investors are looking at Nigeria as a safe bet for their investments. One of the reasons for the recent economic downturn has been, besides the volatility of the naira, has been a decrease in investor confidence and therefore a decrease in foreign direct investment. We've seen several international organizations and corporations actively leave the country because of that level of uncertainty regarding our economic indices. But if we were to see a certain level of stability return, if you look at the past, let's say 7 years of Nigeria's economic indices, you will find that although there was certain periods of instability regarding the naira, it was always largely predictable and never too far and never too extreme that investors would be shy about putting their money into the Nigerian market. But when you have a situation whereby the currency can fluctuate from 700 to the dollar to 1,200 to the dollar in a matter of days, that certainly would cause any investor pause. But if we can now, as we are seeing this past July, have a situation whereby the volatility is arrested, then I think that would increase investor confidence, and long term that would mean a healthier economy and increased foreign direct investment, increased foreign portfolio investment in Nigeria.
But generally speaking, how would you appraise the major reforms now by the current CBN governor, that is in the person of Governor Olayemi Cardoso, looking at the entire picture so far since he, emerged as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor. We have seen efforts by him towards converging, the exchange rate, and a lot more has been done by him. But how would you appraise his efforts so far?
I think the CBN governor has a very difficult job because while the CBN is in control of the country's monetary policy, its fiscal policy is decided by the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Budget and Planning, and experts within the presidency. Sometimes there are areas of misalignment. Sometimes there are considerations that are made before the CBN governor has time to really look over what the implications might be. You look at, for to subsidy very much earlier in 2023. You look at the decision to increase the budget by some $6 billion. These were things that could have an almost immediate effect on the nation's monetary policy that would require some time in order for CBN governor to fully appraise the situation and take control of the matter. But I think doing all of these challenges, he's done an enviable job. And looking at the level of stability we've seen over this past month, I think it would be a bit too early to make final conclusions, but it is a positive indicator of the policies and the decisions that have been taken by the CBN so far that we have seen a slowdown in inflation.
And the CBN has said that it will continue to monitor conditions and adjust when necessary. But I would like for you to highlight, potential areas that adjustment could be done in the nearest future, and what would those areas be for you?
I think when it comes to areas of improvement specifically, you have to look at what specific indices are going to help diversify the Nigerian economy right now. Because the only way in which to arrest the nation's inflation is to ensure that there are ways through which the economy can grow beyond single forms of recurrent expenditure. That means finding ways in which to really support small and medium enterprises across the country, since the informal sector makes up the vast majority of the country's consumption. So it means finding ways in which to plug nation's fiscal misalignments. It also means working with the FIRS to find ways in which to diversify the tax base of the country. Personally, I think that the CBN is already on the right track, and it really depends on what happens within the next few months. If it does turn out that these particular policies are going to have long-term positive effects, then there doesn't really need to be much change from the CBN specifically. Change is really going to come from whatever economic policies fall from the presidency and the Ministry of Finance. However, if we do not see within the next couple of months a continued issue of stability, then the CBNs have to go back to the drawing board and find new ways in which it can stabilize the naira.
Again, I mean, this is a reminder that there has to be that synergy between, the fiscal side of government as well as the monetary side of government. But thank you, Faiz Aliyu, for your insight today on the program. Very, very, very insightful conversation. Thank you, as always, for coming on Business Daily.
Thank you for having me.
And this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily, talking to issues around the recently released data by the Central Bank of Nigeria that has shown that about $553 million came in as remittance inflows from diaspora Nigerians in the year, in the month of July 2024, and that represented about 130% increase from the corresponding period of 2023. But that is all that we will be having today on the program. But join the conversation on social media. Let us hear from you. What are your thoughts on these, and what again do you believe might be the contributing factors? My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.